Professor Park hunched over his equipment in the dimly lit laboratory, his eyes reflecting the blue glow of quantum calculations streaming across multiple screens. For 3 years, he had worked tirelessly in this underground facility beneath Seoul's science district. His colleagues had long abandoned what they called his impossible theory, but today would prove them all wrong. "It's stabilizing," he whispered, barely believing his own readings. The small metallic ring on his workbench hummed softly, surrounded by instruments feeding it precisely calibrated energy. A tiny shimmer appeared in its center, not just a visual distortion, but an actual tear in space-time. The first human-created wormhole. Professor Park didn't celebrate. He simply stood there watching. He didn't know that 50 million kilometers away, sensors on a cloaked alien observation post were suddenly going haywire. The observers belonged to the Galactic Concord, a coalition of advanced species that had ruled this sector for millennia. Their sophisticated equipment wasn't supposed to detect what they classified as primitive pre-space species, developing stable wormhole technology. That kind of advancement typically took thousands of years after achieving spaceflight. Humans had somehow done it before even establishing their first Mars colony. "Impossible," muttered the observer commander, recalibrating his instruments. When the readings remained unchanged, he sent an emergency signal through their own wormhole communication network. Within hours, the highest council of the Concord convened for the first emergency session in 3 centuries. "The humans must be contained," declared the eldest representative, a being whose species had traveled the stars when humans were still figuring out agriculture. "Their development curve is unlike anything we've documented. At this rate, they'll achieve interstellar capability within a decade." "Containment protocols have failed," argued another counselor. "Our observation posts report they're already replicating the effect. Their digital information networks spread knowledge too quickly." The vote was unanimous. For the safety of the established galactic order, Earth would face preemptive action. When the first strikes hit Earth's major cities, most humans had no idea who was attacking or why. Orbital bombardments precisely targeted power grids, communication centers, and military installations. The Concord expected surrender within days from what their records classified as a fractious species with limited unity capacity. They were wrong. In the smoking ruins of what had been Seoul's Quantum Research Center, Professor Park pulled himself from the rubble. His underground lab was partially intact, protected by layers of concrete and earth. As government officials evacuated him to a secure mountain facility, he clutched a small device to his chest, the prototype wormhole generator's control matrix. "They're afraid of us," he told General Kim when they reached the emergency command center carved into a mountainside. "They wouldn't attack unless our technology threatened them." General Kim nodded grimly as she reviewed incoming reports. Across the planet, humanity was rallying rather than surrendering. Old conflicts were set aside as governments shared information, resources, and military assets. If aliens wanted war, they'd get one. The turning point came 3 weeks into the conflict. A small team of special forces led by Lieutenant Joe managed to capture an alien shuttle during a ground incursion near Busan. Inside was working technology beyond human understanding, but not beyond human adaptation. "Their systems are actually more straightforward than we expected," Professor Park told the Emergency Council after 48 hours examining the craft. "They've relied on the same technological base for too long. There's almost no innovation in their design." While the aliens continued their bombardment, expecting humans to crumble, research teams worked around the clock. They didn't just copy the alien technology, they improved it. The quantum principles that allowed the original wormhole experiment became the foundation for understanding the alien propulsion systems. 2 months after the first attack, humans had reversed-engineered enough technology to mount a defense. Their first counterstrike caught the conquered vessels completely by surprise. Using modified versions of the aliens' own weapons, Earth forces managed to disable a major command ship in orbit. Inside the captured vessel, human technicians discovered the Galactic database. For the first time, They understood who their attackers were and the vastness of the civilization that wanted them eliminated. They call themselves the Concord, General Kim announced to world leaders. 7 ancient species who've controlled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. They attacked because we developed too quickly, because we achieved in decades what took them centuries. Professor Park, working with a global team of scientists, made another breakthrough by studying the alien communication systems. They've never encountered a species that adapted this rapidly, he explained. Their reports show they're already requesting reinforcements. The revelation spurred humanity to work even faster. Factories worldwide converted to produce components for space vessels. The first truly human-designed spacecraft incorporating the captured technology launched just 4 months after the initial attack. As the alien blockade tightened around Earth, preparing for their reinforcements, they remained unaware of what was happening on the planet below. Humans weren't just building defensive systems. They were preparing to take the fight beyond their home world. They thought we would break, Lieutenant Joe told her crew as they prepared Earth's first stealth vessel. Instead, we evolved. The Concord's High Commander received disturbing reports from the containment fleet. Human resistance was growing stronger, not weaker. Their weapons were improving with each encounter. Most troubling of all, their scientists were beginning to understand principles that should have been centuries beyond their grasp. This species doesn't know its place, he informed the Council. We must increase the containment protocol to full eradication before they spread beyond their system. But as the reinforcement fleet prepared to depart for Earth, the High Commander didn't realize that humans had already discovered something the Concorde had never found, a way to hide their quantum signatures completely. The first human exploratory vessels were already slipping past the blockade, carrying with them the seeds of what would become humanity's greatest triumph and the galaxy's most profound transformation. Captain Lee stood at the viewport of the Defiant, his reflection ghosting against the stars beyond. Earth was a shrinking blue dot behind them, surrounded by the faint glitters of the conquered blockade. His crew worked in focused silence, each monitoring systems that hadn't existed 6 months ago. Shadow drive status? Lee asked, his voice steady, despite the weight of their mission. Operating at 97% efficiency, replied Officer Kang from the engineering station. The aliens can't see us. Their sensors are looking for energy signatures they understand. That was humanity's advantage. While the Conquered had settled into technological complacency over thousands of years, humans had been forced to innovate under pressure. The shadow drive was the result, not copied from alien tech, but something entirely new. It didn't mask their ship's energy signature. It shifted it into frequencies the Concorde had never thought to monitor. We're clear of the detection perimeter, announced the navigation officer. Ready for full acceleration. Captain Lee nodded. Take us out. Maximum speed to the Proxima Centauri coordinates. The Defiant wasn't alone. 4 other ships were making similar runs to different star systems, each carrying scientists, engineers, and the equipment needed to establish hidden colonies. Earth might be under siege, but humanity refused to be caged. Back on Earth, cities lay in ruins from the continued bombardment. The Concorde had expected humans to surrender after the first major attacks. When they didn't, the aliens escalated, targeting infrastructure and food production. Yet somehow, in underground facilities and hidden mountain bases, human resistance grew stronger. General Kim reviewed the latest manufacturing reports with grim satisfaction. They keep destroying our factories, but we keep building new ones deeper, she told her staff. And each version of our weapons gets better. The general had authorized the colony missions despite the risks. Earth may fall, she had told Captain Lee before his departure, but humanity will not. 3 weeks later, the Defiant reached Proxima Centauri b, a rocky planet orbiting the nearest star to Earth's sun. It wasn't perfect. The atmosphere needed supplementation for human breathing, but it would serve. Begin landing procedures, ordered Captain Lee, and maintain shadow protocols at all times. The colony ships had been designed to separate, with the main vessel remaining in orbit, while smaller sections descended to the surface. As the landing modules touched down on the rust-colored plains, The colonists emerged wearing environmental suits. Dr. Yoon, the expedition's lead scientist, was the first to step onto the alien soil. "This isn't just a hiding place," she said, over the shared comm channel. "This is where we start fighting back." Within days, the prefabricated structures were in place, disguised by the natural terrain. The colonists began their work, focusing on weapons technology. Each of the 5 colony expeditions had a different specialization assigned by Earth Command. While the Proxima team concentrated on weapons, the Tau Ceti colony would focus on biotechnology, adapting human physiology to better survive in space. The team sent to Wolf 359 was developing quantum computing systems beyond anything Earth had ever created. 2 more colonies would specialize in propulsion technology and energy systems. Months passed. On Earth, the resistance continued despite increasingly devastating attacks. The Concord was growing frustrated. Their reports to the High Council showed mounting losses with little progress toward subduing the humans. "This species doesn't understand defeat," complained one commander. "We destroy their facilities, yet they rebuild faster than before. Their weapons improve with each engagement." What the Concord couldn't comprehend was that humans thrived under pressure. Facing extinction, they had set aside old rivalries and united with a single purpose. Children studied advanced physics and engineering. Farmers became experts at hidden food production. Everyone contributed to survival. In the colonies, progress accelerated without the constant threat of bombardment. On Proxima B, Captain Lee's team developed energy weapons that could penetrate Concord shielding. The breakthrough came from combining alien technology with human creativity, an approach the rigid thinking of the Concord couldn't match. "They rely too much on tradition," Dr. Yoon explained during a strategy meeting. "They've been the dominant power for so long that they've forgotten how to truly innovate." The greatest challenge was communication between the scattered colonies and Earth. Direct transmissions would reveal their locations. The solution came from the Wolf 359 team, quantum entanglement communicators that allowed instantaneous, undetectable messaging across light years. When the first secure connection was established, Captain Lee sent a simple message to Earth. "Command, colonies operational, Phase 2 beginning." General Kim's reply was equally brief. "Earth holding, proceed as planned." The plan was audacious. Each colony would develop its specialty to maximum potential, then share the innovations across the network. While the Concord believed they were slowly wearing down a planet-bound species, humans were secretly establishing an interstellar presence and technological base. On the 1-year anniversary of the first attack, representatives from all 5 colonies gathered virtually through the quantum network. What they shared astonished even them. The Tau Ceti team had developed biological enhancements that allowed humans to withstand higher radiation and operate more efficiently in space. Wolf 359's quantum computers could break Concord encryption in seconds. The propulsion specialists had created engines twice as fast as anything the aliens used. And Captain Lee's weapons team had prototypes ready that could target the specific weaknesses they'd identified in Concord ship design. "We're not just survivors," Captain Lee told the assembled leaders. "We're the nightmare they created, and now it's time they learned what happens when you corner a species that refuses to die." As the meeting concluded, the first human battle fleet was already being assembled in secret locations throughout the colonies. Earth had appeared to be weakening, a deliberate strategy to make the Concord overconfident. The aliens had no idea that the humans they thought they were slowly defeating had transformed into something new, a spacefaring species with technology that had evolved more in 1 year than the Concord had in centuries, and they were about to reveal themselves. The Concord High Council chamber fell silent as another red light blinked out on the holographic display. That marked the 5th supply convoy to disappear in the past month. No distress signals, no debris fields, just ships vanishing completely in supposedly secure space. "This cannot be the humans," insisted Counselor Vex, his scaled skin flushing with agitation. "Their planet remains under our blockade. Our intelligence confirms they're struggling to maintain basic infrastructure." The eldest counselor, Thar, tapped a gnarled finger against the table. Then explain these disappearances. Explain the increasing sophistication of Earth's defensive capabilities. Something is happening that we do not understand. Neither of them knew that 50 light-years away, Admiral Choi was reviewing the success of her latest operation. The bridge of the Horizon, humanity's first true battle carrier, hummed with activity as officers coordinated the movement of their growing fleet. "Target neutralized," reported her tactical officer. "No conquered vessels escaped to transmit warnings." Admiral Choi nodded, studying the tactical display showing human ships in formation around the captured Concord supply depot. "Begin resource extraction. I want every piece of useful technology and material cataloged and distributed according to protocol." When the Concorde had attacked Earth 18 months ago, they'd expected a quick surrender from what they classified as an underdeveloped species. Instead, they'd created their own worst nightmare, a highly adaptive, rapidly evolving enemy that used the pressure of extinction to fuel unprecedented innovation. While Earth endured under the blockade, the hidden colonies had flourished. Each specialized facility had developed technologies that complemented the others, shared instantly through their quantum communication network. Now, humanity was ready to reveal just how badly the Concorde had miscalculated. "Our next target will be their communication relay in the Procyon system," Admiral Choi announced to her commanders during the strategy briefing. "Without it, their response time to our operations in this sector will triple." Commander Jin, head of Special Operations, leaned forward. "My team is ready to deploy the Lazarus Protocol if necessary." A murmur ran through the assembled officers. The Lazarus Protocol represented humanity's most terrifying innovation. Ships equipped with quantum field generators that could reconstitute themselves after destruction by drawing energy from alternate dimensions. The technology was still experimental with high energy costs, but its psychological impact on the enemy would be devastating. "Authorized only if the mission is compromised," the Admiral responded. "The Concord still doesn't know the full extent of our capabilities. Let's keep some surprises in reserve." 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at Procyon. The Concord defense station detected them only seconds before the attack began, a fatal delay caused by the humans' advanced stealth systems. Precision strikes disabled the station's weapons and engines while leaving its communication array intact. Commander Jin led the boarding party personally. His team moved through the station's corridors with practiced efficiency, their armor incorporating elements of Concord design improved by human ingenuity. The alien defenders were overwhelmed within minutes. "Control center secured," Jin reported over the comm. "Beginning data extraction." The information they pulled from the Concord computers was even more valuable than the station itself. Fleet, movements, security protocols, and most importantly, evidence of fracturing within the Concord Alliance. Back on the horizon, Admiral Choi studied the intelligence with intense focus. "The Kithar are questioning the war," she noted, referring to the youngest species in the Concord. "They believe the attack on Earth was unjustified." "A potential ally?" asked her executive officer. "A potential opportunity," she corrected. "Prepare a tight beam quantum message to Earth Command. We need to accelerate our timeline." As human forces continued their hit-and-run operations throughout conquered territory, their actions didn't go unnoticed by all alien factions. On the Kithar, homeworld political leader Rin addressed the ruling council. "The humans were attacked for developing technology independently," she argued. "They were judged dangerous because they innovated too quickly. Are these not the same accusations the elder species once made against us?" The debate among the Kithar was heated but brief. They had always been uncomfortable with their position in the conquered hierarchy, tolerated but never truly respected by the ancient founding species. When 3 Concorde battlecruisers were destroyed while attempting to put down a Kithar protest, the decision became inevitable. The message that reached Admiral Choi's ship was unexpected, but welcome. "The Kithar seek dialogue with humanity. We recognize the injustice done to your species." What followed was a carefully orchestrated diplomatic dance, conducted through secure quantum channels while both sides maintained operational security. The Kithar provided detailed information about conquered fleet movements. Humanity offered technological innovations that the elder species had always withheld from their younger allies. The partnership proved decisive 2 months later at the Battle of Epsilon Eridani. The Conquered had assembled their primary fleet, nearly 300 warships intended to hunt down and destroy the human forces once and for all. They expected to face perhaps 50 human vessels, based on their intelligence estimates. What they encountered instead was the combined might of humanity's battle groups, now numbering over 100 ships, fighting alongside a Kith-R liberation fleet of similar size. The human vessels employed technologies the Conquered had never seen: adaptive shielding, phase-shifted weapons that bypassed defensive barriers, and ships that seemed to repair catastrophic damage within minutes. When Commander Jin's flagship was struck by a Conquered planet-killer weapon, it appeared to disintegrate completely. The Conquered Admiral broadcast a victory announcement, only to watch in disbelief as the human vessel reconstituted itself behind his command ship, its quantum field generators pulling matter and energy from parallel dimensions. "Impossible," he whispered, seconds before precision strikes disabled his vessel's key systems. Admiral Choi's voice transmitted across all frequencies as the remaining Concord ships attempted to retreat. "Your fleet is defeated. Your allies have abandoned you. For 18 months you have bombarded our homeworld believing you were containing a primitive species. That mistake ends today." The Battle of Epsilon Eridani marked the first major defeat the Concord had suffered in over a millennium. As news spread through their territories, other subjugated species began to question the authority of the elder races. The humans had done what many thought impossible. They had broken the mystique of conquered invincibility. As Admiral Choi surveyed the aftermath of the battle from the Horizon's observation deck, Commander Jin joined her. "Earth has responded to our victory," he said quietly. "They're ready to begin diplomatic initiatives." The Admiral nodded. "The Conquered attacked us because they feared what we might become. Now they'll negotiate because they fear what we already are." Across the stars, humanity's counteroffensive had transformed the galaxy's power structure in less than 2 years. The species the Concord had tried to exterminate was now dictating the terms of peace. The negotiation chamber aboard the neutral station orbiting Tau Ceti hung in perfect gravitational balance, a symbolic gesture that none present missed. Representatives from the conquered species sat in rigid postures on one side of the circular table. The human delegation, led by Ambassador Song, occupied the opposite arc alongside their Kith-R allies. Ambassador Song allowed herself a brief moment to acknowledge the historical weight of this meeting. 2 years ago, humanity had been a single-planet species, unaware of galactic politics. Now they sat as equals, no, as victors, dictating terms to civilizations thousands of years their senior. "We thank you for agreeing to these talks," she began, her voice calm despite the tension filling the room. "Earth has suffered greatly under your unprovoked aggression. Many would expect us to demand revenge." The lead Concord negotiator, a being from the ancient Rakashi species, shifted uncomfortably. His people had been the most vocal advocates for humanity's extermination. "Yet revenge is not our purpose here," Ambassador Song continued. "Today we present a new vision for galactic governance, one based not on fear and suppression, but on cooperation and respect." Her aide distributed data crystals to each delegation. As they inserted them into their readers, a comprehensive document appeared in each species' native language. "We call it the Human Doctrine," Ambassador Song explained. "A new galactic constitution." The document was deceptively simple. Its core principles guaranteed rights to all sentient species, prohibited preemptive violence against developing civilizations, and established a framework where technological advancement was shared rather than controlled. "This is unprecedented," said the Teleran representative, their compound eyes rapidly scanning the text. The Telerans had been among the more moderate Concord voices, often questioning the war against Earth. "As was your attempt to destroy our species simply for developing too quickly," replied Ambassador Song. "We survived because we adapted. We're offering the galaxy a chance to adapt with us rather than against us." The debate that followed lasted for days. The conquered representatives alternated between disbelief and outrage at being presented terms by a species they had tried to eradicate. But the humans had calculated their position perfectly. "You're overlooking something fundamental," said Officer Han, the military attaché to the human delegation, during a particularly heated exchange. "We're not here because we conquered you. We're here because you failed to conquer us." He activated a holographic display showing the current disposition of forces throughout the sector. Human and Kithar vessels maintained strategic positions near key conquered worlds and installations. But equally telling were the numerous unidentified signatures, stealth platforms, and autonomous weapon systems the humans had seeded throughout conquered space during the counteroffensive. "We could have done to you what you attempted to do to us," Ambassador Song said quietly. "Instead, we're offering partnership." On the third day, the Teleran delegation broke ranks with the Concord hardliners. "We accept the human doctrine and request immediate protection under its provisions." Within hours, two more species, the philosophically inclined Moravians and the pragmatic Junkti, also declared their acceptance. The balance of power had decisively shifted. Only the Rakashi and their two closest allies remained opposed. As the other delegations celebrated the forming consensus, the Rakashi representative approached Ambassador Song in a private moment. "This means nothing," he hissed, voice pitched low. "The elder races built this galaxy while your kind was still discovering fire. We will not be dictated to by primates." Ambassador Song met his gaze calmly. "Your perspective is noted, Representative. I hope you'll reconsider before your delegation departs." She didn't mention that intelligence reports had already warned of the Vrakashi secret planning. They were marshaling their reserves for one final devastating attack, a genocidal strike against Earth that would, they believed, break human, resolve once and for all. What they didn't know was that humans had anticipated this reaction. Throughout the negotiations, specialized teams had been activating dormant wormhole generators previously placed near key Vrakashi military installations. 3 days after the peace conference concluded, the Vrakashi launched their attack. Their most powerful fleet, nearly 500 warships strong, emerged from hyperspace expecting to find Earth's defenses. Instead, they found empty space. The triggered wormholes had redirected their entire armada to the intergalactic void, stranded millions of light years from the nearest star, with barely enough fuel to maintain life support. Ambassador Song received the news during a meeting with the newly formed Galactic Council. "The Vrakashi fleet has been neutralized," reported Officer Han discreetly. "No casualties on either side." She acknowledged the information with a subtle nod before addressing the council. "I've just been informed that the Vrakashi attempted a surprise attack on Earth. Their fleet has been contained without bloodshed, using technology we developed specifically to avoid unnecessary casualties." The representatives from the former Concord species exchanged alarmed glances. The Moravian speaker was the first to recover. "What will you do with them?" "We'll bring them home," Ambassador Song replied, "after they formally accept the human doctrine." Later that day, she met with the Vrakashi diplomats who had remained behind. They entered the meeting chamber with the rigid pride of a species unaccustomed to defeat. "Your military leaders have been provided with communication capabilities," she informed them. "They understand their situation. They have fuel for approximately 3 standard months. The return journey through our wormhole network would take 3 days. The lead diplomat's facial membranes flushed with anger. "This is barbaric, is it?" Ambassador Song asked mildly. "We could have destroyed your fleet. We could have bombarded your homeworld as you did ours. Instead, we simply removed the threat without taking a single life. The choice to return is entirely yours." She rose from her seat, signaling the end of the meeting. "We could have annihilated you," she said. "Remember that when you question our authority again." The Vrakashi capitulation came 26 days later, sooner than most had predicted. Their fleet returned through the human-controlled wormholes, their leaders subdued and shocked by the demonstration of power so far beyond their understanding. as Ambassador Song watched the formal signing ceremony bringing the last conquered species into the new galactic governance structure, she felt neither triumph nor vindication. Their victory had never been about punishment or domination. It was about creating something better than what had come before. The human doctrine isn't about human rule, she had explained to her staff when drafting the document. It's about ensuring no species ever again faces extinction simply for having the audacity to evolve too quickly. Across former conquered space, the news spread rapidly. The age of suppression had ended. The galaxy's future would be built on innovation rather than tradition, cooperation rather than control. And at its center stood humanity, a species that had gone from fighting for survival to rewriting the rules of galactic civilization in less than 3 years. Professor Park rested his aged hands on the observation rail, gazing out at the bustling spaceport below. 20 years had passed since his quantum wormhole discovery had inadvertently triggered the Concord's attack on Earth. Now, looking at the diverse species moving harmoniously through the massive terminal, those dark days seemed like another lifetime. "I never imagined this," he said softly to his companion. Admiral Han, once his student and now the commander of the Federation's diplomatic fleet, smiled. "None of us did. We were just trying to survive." The Seoul spaceport represented everything. The Terran Federation had become a centerpiece of interstellar commerce and cooperation. Ships from 100 worlds docked at its massive orbital platforms daily. Below, the city had been rebuilt from the ashes of alien bombardment into a gleaming metropolis that honored both human heritage and galactic diversity. "The council session begins in 30 minutes, Admiral Han reminded him gently. "They're expecting you to speak about the new wormhole expansion." Professor Park nodded, though public appearances tired him these days. At 89, he remained sharp-minded but physically frail. Still, as the creator of the technology that had transformed the galaxy, his presence at major initiatives was considered essential. They boarded a private shuttle to the Federation Council headquarters, a stunning structure of crystal and light that seemed to float above the rebuilt city center. Representatives from over 40 species filled the chamber, each delegation occupying spaces designed for their specific physiological needs. The council chair, a human Kithar hybrid named Yuna, called the session to order. "Today marks the 20th anniversary of the human doctrine and the establishment of the Terran Federation. We gather to approve the next phase of the Galactic Connection Initiative." Professor Park listened as technical experts presented the details of his brainchild, a vast network of stable wormholes connecting thousands of worlds. What had begun as a defensive technology during the war had evolved into the foundation of a new interstellar civilization. "With the addition of the Cygnus sector linkages," explained the chief engineer, "travel time between the outer colonies and central worlds will decrease by 63%. Trade volume is projected to increase by similar margins." When it was his turn to speak, Professor Park rose slowly with Admiral Han's assistance. The chamber fell silent out of respect. "When I created the first wormhole in my laboratory," he began, his voice surprisingly strong, "I thought I was building a tool for exploration. I never imagined it would become the backbone of peace." He gestured toward the Rikashi delegation, once humanity's most dedicated enemy, now reluctant but committed partners in the Federation. Some feared that human dominance would simply replace conquered dominance, that we would become the very thing we fought against. But look around this chamber. Each world represented here governs itself. Each species determines its own path. We merely provided the connections between them. After the session concluded with unanimous approval for the expansion project, Admiral Han accompanied Professor Park to a private reception. Leaders from across the Federation approached to pay their respects, including some who had once commanded fleets against Earth. "The true test of the doctrine is yet to come," noted Counselor Tin, one of the more progressive Rikashi representatives. "Your probe has detected signals from the developing world in the Sagittarius arm?" Admiral Han nodded. "Their civilization appears to be entering their nuclear age. Traditional Concord protocol would have been to place observers and contain their development. "And what will the Federation do instead?" asked Tin. "The Council has already voted," replied Professor Park. "Admiral Han's diplomatic vessel departs tomorrow to establish peaceful contact. Later that evening, aboard her flagship in Earth orbit, Admiral Han reviewed the mission briefing for the contact expedition. The newly discovered species had developed technology roughly equivalent to Earth's mid-20th century. They had split the atom, launched primitive satellites, and were transmitting radio signals into space. Under the old Concord rules, they would have been classified as a pre-spacefaring species to be monitored and controlled. Their development would have been carefully managed to ensure they didn't advance too quickly or in unpredictable directions. Any breakthrough like Professor Park's would have triggered immediate military action. "Prepare the cultural exchange packages," she instructed her first officer, "and remember, we approach as equals offering friendship, not as superiors bearing gifts." The officer, who had served with her since the counteroffensive against the Concorde, smiled slightly. "Some habits are hard to break, Admiral. Most species still expect us to act like conquerors. That's precisely why we can't," she answered. "The moment we begin treating others as the Concorde treated us, we lose everything that makes the Federation worth building." As her ship prepared for departure the next morning, Admiral Han stood at the main viewport watching Earth recede. The planet bore few visible scars from the war now. The cities had been rebuilt. The ecological damage had been repaired with technology shared by Federation partners. Even the orbital defense platforms, once a necessity for survival, had been largely repurposed for scientific research and navigation control. She thought about the journey. Ahead, not just the diplomatic mission to a new world, but the larger path humanity was forging. 20 years ago, they had been fighting extinction. Now they shepherded a galactic community unlike anything that had existed before. Her communications officer interrupted her thoughts. "Admiral, we're receiving a message from Professor Park." The elderly scientist's face appeared on her screen, transmitted from his home in Seoul. "I won't be here when you return," he said without preamble. "The doctors give me a few months at most." Admiral Han felt her throat tighten. "Professor—" He raised a hand to stop her. "No sorrow, please. I've lived to see something remarkable. When those aliens first attacked us, I feared I had doomed humanity by creating something we weren't ready for. Instead, it forced us to become better than we were. You gave us the stars," she said simply. "No," he corrected with a gentle smile. "We already had the stars. I just helped build the roads between them." He paused, his eyes bright with emotion. "When you meet this new species, remember our own beginning. The galaxy learned to both fear and love humans. Fear our potential for righteous fury, but love our capacity for compassion that surpasses all other species." As the transmission ended, Admiral Han turned back to the viewport. The wormhole gate was activating ahead, its swirling blue energy preparing to catapult them across hundreds of light years in an instant. "Our strength was never in our weapons," she noted in her mission log as the ship accelerated toward the portal. "It was in our refusal to become like those who tried to destroy us." The Federation flagship vanished into the wormhole, carrying humanity's message of peace to yet another world, not as conquerors but as guides for a galaxy still learning how to grow beyond its ancient fears.